everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and our weekly look back at the hot comics from 6 months ago. This week we're looking back at the hot comics from September 29th, 2023, and I'm recording this on March, what is today? 27th. It's Wednesday, so it's March 27th, 2024. As always, I give you those dates because you know when this information is actually relevant, because the market is always moving and changing, as you will see by the differences in prices just from 6 months on these hot books. As always, we're also looking at the CBSI Hot Top 10 and the Comic Tom Key Collector Hottest Trending Comics of the Week. Why do we do this? Basically, you know, there's a lot of effort and FOMO around hot books all the time. People are chasing them, and we just kind of do a quick look back only 6 months later to see, would you have been better off just being patient? What books really need you to chase it? Should you chase in the moment? What books should you just wait on? And what are the factors that made those books hot that affect whether or not they're going to be still hot in 6 months, or you can get a better deal? So, without further ado, let's look at the 17 books from that week and see what we can learn. First off, we got Fish Flies, number 2, the recalled air version. This is on the list for the second week in a row. Back then it was like 5 to 30. So last week it was, 10 to 15. And then it kind of like spread out. There was a wider variation in the sales by the second week. But sales going as high as $30. Now it's a $5 to $10 book. 9.8 only costs you $30 on this thing. So it's still a down and trap if you were paying that $20, $30. Even $15, it's basically a trap. So yeah, it's definitely better off if you've been patient here, which is not unusual for recalled books. Recalled books almost never hold their value unless there is an actually really limited supply. In this case, they were told to destroy them. Nobody did, so there's a ton of them out there. Next, we have a couple of option news books. First up, we have Department of Truth, number 1. This has obviously been option for a long time, but this was Tinian made a post that he was working on writing the TV show again. I think this is about the time the writer's strike ended, so he was starting back up on the TV show. So that was the post that got everybody fired up for this book again, although it was still only going, raw copies were jumped up all the way up to 20 on average, but 9.8s were only 30 to 50. There are a ton of 9.8s out there, but yeah, now it's a $10 to $20 book, 9.8, 60, so still relatively low on the 9.8 side. So we're going to call this down, and I'll be back, because most of the sales are still on the raw side. They're down just a little bit. You could maybe say steady, I'll be back. But yeah, this is a book that's, it's been basically a $10 to $20 book for a long time. It's been a 9.8 in that $30 to $60 range for a long time. I would just look for the right deal. Next, we have Snatched, number 1. This was from 2021. This book was optioned by Warner Brothers TV. So that's why it hit the list. 5 to 15 back then, which is actually pretty reasonable for an option book. If a book stays in that range, you're not doing too bad buying it. Usually you could do better being patient, but in this case, it's now a $10 to $20. Well, a $10 and $20 book. There was only 2 sales, so I think you can probably find a deal here. People are asking more than people are willing to pay. But yeah, we're going to call this steady and worth it, but with 2 sales, it's hard to really justify anything more than that, even though there is a $20 sale, which is a little higher than what it was back then. All right, with that, we're going to move into our covers for this week, and we had, 4 covers is all, which is not a lot of covers compared to normal. Sonic the Hedgehog, Amy's anniversary special, 30th anniversary special, the Jennifer Hernandez 1 in 10 variant made the list. We've had a lot of Sonic books hit this list over the last couple years. They don't usually do very well when you look back at them. This is no exception. Back then, this one was $50. Now it's a $10 to $20 book. So yeah, that's a dumpster fire. Absolutely. A $50 book becoming a $10 to $20 book. Not a good deal. So yeah, I think there's been one exception to these Sonic books that didn't fall back, but most of them have not done well. Next, we have another book on the list for the second week in a row, Wolverine, number 37, the Thank You variant from Capullo. At this point, it was going for 50 to 90. A reminder that this is a 1 per store on a book like this is typically about equivalent to a 1 in 25. So you're talking about a book that's averaging around triple ratio at those prices. But now it's a ratio to double book, 20 to 50, 9.8 Only one sale, but it only went for $99. So yeah, that's a dumpster fire. If you paid $70 and now it's a $30 book, not a great investment on your part, unfortunately. So, but but a pretty typical kind of response from a book like this. Next, we have Dr. Aphra, number 36, the Eric Gist 1 in 100. This was getting toward the end here of this Dr. Aphra run, although I think it went for a few more issues after this. I know just recently I think we got the final issue. But this 1 in 100 of Ahsoka, right after the Ahsoka show came out, was going for $140 to $210 back then for raw copies. And now it's a $30 to $115 book. But most of the sales are like $30 to $60, with just a couple sales, like a $90 and a $115 and stuff. 9.8s are going for $100 to $150. So yeah, this is another dumpster fire. Like that $115 is sort of an outlier here. Yeah, this is a book that's well under $100, and yeah, not anywhere near what it was worth back then. Still a really cool cover and a cool character, but yeah, just not carrying those kind of prices. Next, we have Void Rivals, number 4. So this is our cover/buzz book of the week. This is the Karen Darbo 1 in 25 spoiler variant. As you can see, a character making their appearance in this new universe for the first time. $50 to $85 back then for this 1 in 25. And now, we just talked about a book that was setting between double and triple ratio. Falling way back, this one is now between ratio and double, 25 to 50, 9.8, 80 to 125. So yeah, this is a trap. This is very typical. We've had like 1 or 2 of these kind of Void Rivals kind of covers and stuff hold, but for the most part, they're doing what most of these covers do at this point now. They've started to back up. Next, we have Void Rivals number 1. We're into strictly the buzz side of things, and there was just a lot of buzz still going for this whole Energon universe, so people were chasing this book. There was a lot of sales, but it was still a $4 book. 9.8, 35 to 80 even back then. Now it's a $4 to $10 book, but 9.8s are 25 to 50. So because of the 9.8s, we're going to call it a down, and I'll be back on the 9.8 side. Obviously, I said whatever back then because, yeah, it was going for basically cover, and it's now going for cover plus shipping on eBay, basically. All right, next, more buzz. Transformers number 1 from 1984. Obviously, all about this Energon universe. Back then, raw copies were going averaging around 100, 9.6 hitting 350. Now, raw copies 20 to 150, but really that average is probably really close to around 100 still. But 9.6 is 2 to 275 for the most part, but our most recent sale was all the way down to $100. So that's probably an outlier low, but even at the 2 to 275, that's a down, and I'll be back borderline trap on the 9.6 side of things for Transformers number 1. So even this book is taking a step back as we've gotten more and more of this Energon universe, and it's not necessarily the hot new thing anymore. It's just a thing that's going. All right, more buzz. We have DC Comics Presents number 26, first appearance of Starfire, Raven, and Cyborg. This book was hitting the list because they were getting the Teen Titans were getting their first company-wide event with Beast World. So yeah, there was some buzz here about just this book. Raw copies were going for 50 to 150 on it. 9.8, 1,000 to 1,500. We've gotten some recent news related to these characters in the Teen Titans about potentially getting a movie in the new DC universe under James Gunn. But yeah, even without that, this book has been pretty steady. Raw copies right now, 50 to 350. Obviously, there was a couple sales way higher than what we were looking at back then because there was a couple really nice copies that have sold. 9.8, 950 to 1250. So overall, we're going to call this steady and worth it because of the raw sales. You want to argue I should maybe call this and I'll be back. I wouldn't argue with you too hard. But even with the new news, it's been setting basically right in the same range that it usually sets. Next, we have Uncanny X-Men number 129. First appearance of Kitty Pryde and Emma Frost. And I apparently didn't write down why this book was hot back then. It's a great book. I think this was one of those that was hitting the list because, yeah, it had taken big steps back since the boom. and there was just a bunch of sales kind of going on. Book was moving forward again. I could be wrong. There may have been something specific. I don't think there was, but 50 to 300 back then, 9.8, 2300. Now 60 to 300 for a raw copy, 9.8, 18 to 3350. Yeah, very interesting on the 9.8 sales. There's like an 18, a 19, an 1850, but mixed in there, there's like a 30, a $3,000, a 3350, like over the last few months. So not that there's a ton of 9.8 sales, but yeah, there's wide range on the values, and it's not just auctions versus buy it nows. Like one of the auctions was like a $3,000, and there was a couple buy it nows that were like around 2 or under. So just very interesting where the pricing was on this one. So this overall, we're just going to call steady and worth it. It's a great book, 2 great characters, 2 of my favorite X-Men. So yeah, a book I love, and so far steady and worth it lately, and probably long term straight cash. So all right, with that, we're going to move away from just comic buzz and comic news. We got another DC movie book. We got Superman for All Seasons #1, and basically this is just James Gunn was talking about how he enjoyed this story, and it was a story that kind of gave some inspiration for the new Superman movie that's coming. Raw copies back then were $5. 9.8 jumped all the way up to 140, and this book is actually up. It's now 5 to 15 on the raw side, which is again kind of that shipping charge and that kind of stuff, the typical kind of eBay thing. But 9.8, 215, 230, the 2 recent sales. So that's definitely up in straight cash on the 9.8 side if you got one back then. All right, with that, we have 2 Star Wars books as we were getting toward the end of the Ahsoka show. We got Star Wars Heir to the Empire #1, First Appearance of Grand Admiral Thrawn. Obviously, by this point, he had appeared. 100 to 150 raw back then for non-newsstand. 9.8 hitting 800. Now it's a $35 to $100 book raw. 9.8, 550 to 700. So yeah, that's a trap. This is a character that's going to be back in the more season 2 of Ahsoka plus a movie, but at least one movie. But yeah, not a lot of love for this book at the moment. Somebody said last week, I think you're wrong, it's going to bounce back. And I think it does bounce back eventually. But right now it is definitely down in a trap compared to what it was last fall. So I think eventually this book does bounce back, but right now's probably a good time to buy it, honestly. So, all right, next we have Star Wars Thrawn #6, his origin, at least his new origin in the Marvel kind of universe. Back then, raw copies were going for $25, 9.8, 130. Now it's a $15 to $35 book raw, so pretty steady with the average right in the same place. 9.8, 200, only one sale there, so it's hard to really say it's up compared to that 130 because it is just one sale to go off of. But we're going to say steady and worth it because of all the raw sales being right on that same window they were on back then. All right, with that, we have 3 MCU books to close out this week's list. We got Power Man and Iron Fist #79, first appearance of Professor Gamble, who was apparently a character in Loki Season 2. I still haven't went back and watched Loki Season 2. I am so behind on my TV watching. It's ridiculous. But anyway, $5 to $20 back then. Now it's a $2 to $10 book. Shocking. A part-time character in one of the Marvel shows turns into a trap when people chase the book. This happens almost every time. It happens for the main characters, let alone the side characters. All right, next we have All New Wolverine #1. First Laura Kinney as Wolverine. I think this is the second week in a row this was on the list. And yeah, this was rumors Daphne Keane was going to appear in Deadpool. I think we've gotten some confirmation of that at this point. Raw copies back then were going for 30, 9.8, 77 to 100. Now raw copies 15 to 40, 9.8, 90 to 115. We're going to go steady and worth it here as well. Maybe. So yeah, basically the same range on values here for this particular book. I hope we do see her. I thought, A, I love Laura as a character. B, I thought she did a great job in the Wolverine movie. So I'm hoping she plays a decent sized role in Deadpool, but my guess is it's probably just a cameo, unfortunately. Next we have Miss Marvel #1, the first appearance of Carol Danvers as Miss Marvel. Yeah, this was hitting the list in anticipation, and I think we got the trailer at that point for the movie. Am I getting my timing right? trying to remember when that movie came out now. It seems like a while ago, but it wasn't. Anyway, yeah, first Carol is Miss Marvel. Back then the book was 20 to 70 raw, 9.8, 700 to 1,000. Now it's a $10 to $225 book raw. That really just has to do with we've got some high quality raw copies sell. Had some high copy. We had some high quality raw copies sale. I'm not going to cut this out. I'm just going to leave it. So that we got a few higher value sales compared to what we were getting back then. So it's not really up. It's just, yeah, we just had some better copies because 9.8s are 7 to 850. So you could call this one steady. I typed in worth it. This should have been steady and I'll be back. I don't know why I typed worth it here because, yeah, it's on the low end on the 9.8 side of what it was before. But yeah, still in the same, within the range there on the 9.8s and definitely covering the same range on the raws, although expanded. So with that, that's the end of our list. I want to thank you guys for watching, and despite my flubs here at the end, appreciate you hanging with me, and we will catch you next time.